It's time for a special interview here on Morning Wave in Busan. Today marks the 69th anniversary of the start of the 1950 through 53 Korean War, which ended without a peace treaty. President Moon Jae-in vowed yesterday to continue efforts to bring lasting peace to the Korean peninsula, although there has not yet been an official end to the Korean War. We have invited a special person who is a military historian who is also doing some commemoration volunteer work in Canada. But I believe he's here in Korea. Let's find out more from Guy Black. And he's once again a military historian. Hi, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for welcoming me to speak on your station. It's great.
Absolutely. Can you first tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm here from Port Moody, British Columbia, Canada, which is on the west coast. And I'm actually an insurance analyst. That's my job. And my passion is history, military history, and remembrance of veterans.
Yes. Well, I hear that you are here. Are you in Korea right now as we speak?
I am in Busan with my friend Sunny Sun. Yes.
Ah, I see. And so tell us why you're here.
We came here to do something that I think has never been done before, and that's for a British Columbia resident to come here to pay tribute to the veterans from our home that died in the Korean War. So we've been attending services at the United Nations Cemetery in Busan, where we are.
I see. Well, I hear that you researched about, in particular, two people, Donald Hastings and Vincent Liska. And so can you tell us a little bit about them?
Okay. Donald Hastings, there's 36 men from British Columbia that died in the Korean War. 3 do not have a grave. Their bodies were never found. One is Donald Hastings, the other Vince Liska, and the third one is John Barak. And they stand out to me because they came here, they died, they lost everything, their family suffered. And really, Donald Hastings was the beginning of my journey that started 15 years ago to come to Korea.
15 years ago. Yeah. I'm very curious, though, why and how did you start how did you gain interest in this field in the first place? Was there something that sparked your interest?
Yeah. I have always, from a very, very young age, been interested in military history. But it wasn't until 20 years ago when I was a volunteer in a military museum. And at that time, I had no interest or knowledge of the Korean War. It really meant nothing to me. But 2 men that I was helping in the museum were Korea War veterans.
Yes.
And they would tell war stories every day. And one day, one of these men, he was a sergeant, he gave me a baseball hat that said Korean War on it, and he gave me a Korean War commemorative poster. And I thought, I don't really need these, and I don't wear a baseball hat, but I'll take them.
Okay.
And then that really, the association with them and these items got me started, and it just took off, and it's something that I do every day.
My goodness.
Yeah.
To me, that's so fascinating because usually, we hear about family members or descendants of war veterans or people who have, contributed to any war who might be interested. But in your case, it was just almost by chance. You were a volunteer at a military museum so many years ago.
Yeah.
I hear you already mentioned your friend. Is it Sunny Sun?
Sunny Sun.
Yes. Tell us about your friend and what you're doing.
Sunny Sun moved to Canada, I think, in the late 60s. He was in the Korean Army, and he served in the Vietnam War. And we became friends about 10 years ago, just by chance.
Right.
And we have really partnered together to do Korean War commemoration work in Canada. I love organizing events, and I organized the event at the cemetery yesterday.
Yes.
But he's always been instrumental in helping me, and we work well together. and with the local Korean community. So yesterday we commemorated British Columbia's Korean War dead.
Yes.
And we're back today to represent the government of British Columbia.
I heard something along the lines of you were presented with stones. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah. With Donald Hastings, he lived in North Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2005, I was able to get a lake in North Vancouver named after him.
Oh.
So it's called Hastings Lake.
Yes.
And a member of our local search and rescue team retrieved some small stones from that lake. So we had the stones blessed by a church in Vancouver.
Okay.
And we brought those to the cemetery to be placed where Hastings' name is commemorated. And through my research, I tracked down Vince Liska's son.
Yes.
And he gave me several stones. And we had those blessed at a Korean church in Vancouver. And Sonny's son placed those where Mr. Liska's name is.
I see. So meaningful. Can you tell us a little bit more about Donald Hastings? I mean, aside from, of course, his service and sacrifice ultimately in the Korean War.
I think I did quite a lot of research that started in 2004, and I did find his family.
Yes.
So he was a young guy, and he served in the Second World War in the Merchant Navy.
Okay.
I think he really had a sense of adventure, and he joined the military around 1949 and joined the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. He was newly married. As far as I know, he didn't have any children. And he moved to another province, Alberta, where he served in the Army. And then he volunteered for overseas service, and he was killed in action in 1952. And basically, he was wounded. For many reasons, he had to be left in no man's land, where his patrol was ambushed. And then the Canadian artillery basically pulverized the area where the patrol had been.
Yes.
And the next day, there was nothing found. So Donald Hastings, there's not much known about him, but he is really someone that remains in Korea. His body was on your land and never found.
What about Vincent Liska? Do we have more information on him?
Yeah, a little bit more. It's so hard to go back and find personal details about someone's life.
Yes.
Vince Liska, he was a little bit older, and he lived on Vancouver Island, which is the capital city of British Columbia. And he was in the Royal Canadian Navy.
Yes.
At the time that he passed away, he was actually swept off the deck of his ship during an evacuation of refugees from a port in Korea.
Yes.
And it was on December the 4th. His son's birthday is actually December the 4th as well. And his son was 4 months old when his father died.
Oh, goodness.
So his son, who I've spoken to many times, never even met his father.
Right. Speaking of all the sacrifices, not just of these two men, but Canadian soldiers, approximately 26,700 Canadian soldiers participating in the Korean War. I understand that there are, commemorative events or ceremonies in Canada on June 25th. Are these held annually? And if you could tell us a little bit about them.
They are held annually, and the funny thing is, like in Commonwealth countries, like Canada, we commemorate the end of the war, not the beginning. We don't mark the beginning. So we also have a service on July 27th, which marks the ceasefire date. So there will be like national ceremonies in Ottawa, our capital city.
Okay.
And then we will also have them in each province. And we have a special monument in Burnaby, which is a city in British Columbia, and it has the Ambassador of Peace Monument, which is our Korean War memorial.
Yes.
So there will be a ceremony there in June and then one in July.
Well, in terms of an annual ceremony today, because here in Korea, of course, we refer to the Korean War as Yu-Gi-Oh, meaning June 25th, such an important day in Korean history. Can you tell us about the annual ceremony that you will be attending, or what you know about it?
It's going to be very special for me because I've read about it, the ceremony, the United Nations Cemetery.
Yes.
And after 20 years, I will finally be able to be there. I've heard that it's very, very big,
yes.
quite amazing. And there will be maybe 3,000 people attending. So I think it's going to be a very moving moment in time for me and for everyone.
Right. And of course, to many of our listeners who don't live in Busan, the only official UN cemetery exists in Busan. So it's even more, I guess, special, we might say. For our final question, though, let me ask you this. As a military historian, obviously, this war is not officially over. We don't have, a peace treaty, So how do you want this Korean War to be remembered?
How do I want to be remembered? Was that many, many countries from around the world came to Korea to help.
Yes.
And everyone that came was willing to sacrifice, make major sacrifice, and, they knew that they may die, and they came here, and many did die. And I just want the Korean War to be remembered as a time when many nations fought together to bring back peace and help the people of Korea. So they didn't die for nothing. It was a clear, there was a clear reason for coming here and for fighting.
Yes.
And I think that something was achieved, and that was peace.
Well, I certainly hope that many listeners, they were moved just as I was by you telling our listeners, our audience, about your experience and your involvement in really making sure that people involved in the war are not forgotten. So thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Once again, this was our special interview with Guy Black, a military historian who has been really researching this for the past 20 years. Began as a volunteer at a military museum where his interest was piqued by a person simply giving him a baseball hat and a poster. Anyhow, this was our special interview to commemorate the Korean War. We're going to take a song break.